if instead of saying it so loudly, we're here late on a Thursday evening. Thank you so much for being here, my goodness. So, I know, you want to know about the recipe for strawberry pie. So what I do, you mean something else? Before I forget, there's this wonderful company that has a booth somewhere in the conference. Legion M. Legion M. Fan-based production company. Look it up, go to the booth. It's really, I've just joined them as an advisor. I sort of to quit, but they didn't, that's supposed to be a laugh. Three Legion, the shots you just heard were 3 Legion M people shooting themselves. He said, quit. I was joking. That was a joke. Don't quit. Go there and take a look at Legion M. It's a very interesting fan-based production company. They're doing all kinds of things, interesting things. So, and then the other thing is an album called Bill out there. It may be the best thing I've ever done. It's got the kind of notices everybody wishes they could get for anything. There was a moment, I've been working with Rob the poet and Dan Miller, the Emmy Award, Academy Award, whatever. He's got many awards. Musician Dan Miller of They Might Be Giants. So the 3 of us, I've known Rob a long time, and he's an executive here in New York, and every time he comes to to Los Angeles, I'm coming in, Bill, and we meet at a Chinese restaurant, and we have duck. So we talk about everything, the family, ourselves. I've gotten to know him, and he's really like a great friend of mine. I don't know, a friend is a very valuable thing. I had a friend who was stealing from me for 30 years. And I found out, what have you done? I don't know, I was crazy and I haven't slept. Yeah, I know, but you've been stealing money from me. I don't know why I did that. Friend of mine. And that kind of knocks you crazy about who you can trust and even kids in school, but when you're a grown person and somebody really wrecks your opinion of humankind, it's not cool. Anyway, so the point is that we wrote an album, Rob, Dan, and I, during COVID, and we met over duck before the COVID thing. And we're talking, and Dan says, we ought to make an album. This was just before the COVID hit. And yeah, let's make an album. And Rob said, let's do Bill. And we'll do Bill, all the books and the stories, and we'll write songs about the stories. For example, one of the songs is called The Bridge. So the story is, I've graduated from university, I've done all kinds of plays and things, and I'm now leaving home, leaving Montreal, heading towards the New York of Canada, Toronto.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know how to take that. Toronto is this terrific city.
Yes.
With more traffic than New York. It's a terrific city, but it is the center of English-speaking Canada and all the entertainment, television, radio. So I'm leaving, the point is I'm leaving home. I have got everything I've owned in the back seat of a little torn up, little English car that I bought, if I remember correctly, for about $400. I got a $400 car and I'm headed for Toronto to make my fame and fortune. And I'm filled with the anguish of leaving home. I've got a granddaughter who's going to freshman university away from her. She left home for the first time. And it's like it's a war, because love like that, love from your mother, your father, love from a lover. I'm going to get into another subject in a moment. But love, that kind of love, is like a drug. You need that love. I have a talk show called I Don't Understand. And it's everything I don't understand, which is everything. I don't understand anything. No, I mean, seriously, I don't understand Comic-Con. What the hell is a Comic-Con? Where did it come from? What is it? You know, if you trace the history, it came from comics. So everything we don't understand, we walk around assuming you got your phone, you got your camera, taking a picture, and you think that's a miracle, man. A miracle of taking a picture and a phone. I mean, you got to be dazzled by everything. Trees. Trees. They keep discovering new things. Like, for example, under the ground, there's a latticework network all over everything, mycelium, from which mushrooms, the fruit of which, when the conditions are right, mushrooms suddenly around. Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, the precise, I want the facts, give me the facts. He thought mushrooms were fairies. That's how magical his mind went from being the precise author to looking at with trees are magical. And they use that network, that mycelium, that fungi use, to send electrochemical impulses to other trees, like baby trees and mother trees. And it's all a proven fact. Electrochemical impulse, electrical, going on a track. Electrochemical impulse in a dendrite in your brain. I mean, the connection, the trees are beautiful. I mean, it's incredible. What goes on? I don't understand. So I do a lot that I don't understand. I got so caught up I don't understand where I am. What was I talking about? It happens when you're my age, okay? It's called retrieval. It happens very slowly. The magic. What was I saying though? What? Say it out loud. My album. So across it says, I'm leaving home. This will happen a lot, but just go with me, okay? So I'm leaving home and I'm crossing a bridge, probably over the St. Lawrence River, crossing a bridge. And I see an 18-wheeler coming at me. And I'm in this little cheap car, and there's that pillow of air that 18-wheeler pushes, gets to my car lurches, and I'm almost going over the side. Don't, and I continue on. But I've told that story. So Rob says, let's write a song about that. We write a song called The Bridge. We're always going over a bridge in life, whatever the bridge is. Coming here, you're going over a bridge. In life, you're always going over a bridge from one thing to another, and there's always an 18-wheeler coming at you. And that's what the song is about, and that's what the whole album is about. And the album got incredible notices. Oh, wait a minute. No, you gotta hear the story while I remember it, okay? So, whenever an actor who's like responsible for getting publicity for the thing that he's just done, goes in front of the press. So the press agent says, all right, we're going to talk to these people, and your first interview is with. So in this case, it was with Entertainment Tonight, E.T. So the first interview of this album, which Rob and Dan and I fallen in love with so much that instead of writing just 13 songs, we wrote 20 with the expectation that Joe Jonas's label will pick up the option, okay? So, a guy from E.T. E.T.? Yeah. Wasn't that the one that went up in a bicycle? See how quickly I retrieved that E.T. on that? Okay, so Entertainment Tonight is now saying, oh, Bill, Mr. Shatner, yeah. The album, yeah. He said, I just heard your album. You hear the silence here? Eh? Like, what did he say? That's what was going through my mind, because every time you bring something new out, there's a moment, because you've worked with it, you don't know whether it's good or bad. You think it's good, but you don't know. So now, the first person I'm going to meet who's heard this album, which is a precious baby between the three of us, and I go, yeah? And he pauses a moment, and he says, unbelievably good. So, what I'm saying is I'm involved in a lot of stuff. The album, I'm coming to it. So the album, I love the word drops. I don't know where they get the word drops from. But everybody in the music industry says, my album dropped. And I said, well, did you pick it up? That's a funny line. So the album drops, and it gets these great reviews, and it's, people are buying it. At the same time, like a month ago or 2 months ago, a guy says, Shatner, do you want to do an interview show? I said, well, I did an interview show called Raw Nerve, and it was like delightful. Like, I can't tell you the name of this celebrity. I can't, because I swore, and he's now dead. So, but still, the memory. So the point here is that he was very, very religious Catholic, and he has certain things that the Catholic religion tells you you can't do. So he has his first baby. Now this is a story that he's never told anybody, but I designed a chair so you're sitting like this, and then like a love seat. So I'm talking to the person like this, nothing in between, no desk, no, just like 18 inches, about 18 inches. You're not intruding in on the bubble, and you're not so far away that it's a little distant. About like that. And you can see the change in the eyes. You can see the skin. You can see the hair. Everything that tells you how involved they are in the story. You know, you see people on talk shows going, yeah, I thought, and then they tell you a story. But to be really involved in something, like you're talking to a friend. No, they may not be a friend, but when you're leaning forward and you're intent on hearing. So he says to me, yeah, I never told anybody. He said, but I had a baby, and the baby was crippled. And I was so upset. I didn't know what to do. And I found myself going around saying, would you bless the baby? Would you get my baby, make my baby well? And he said, I found myself going to soothsayers, make the baby. And he said, I don't know what I was doing. I was so upset. Upset doesn't approach it. I was devastated by the baby, the condition of the baby. And I went to strange religions to see if something would happen. Of course, nothing ever happened. And then I said, my God, man, that's an incredible story. 10 minutes, he leaves the studio. 10 minutes later, there's a phone call. Hey, Bill, don't tell that story, please. And I didn't. So you don't know who that is, but that was like something. The key being that I love to talk to people. I love to have that interchange of conversation, and where that conversation leads is incredible. So the show is I Don't Understand, and you can get it on RTD, but when you know when you go in and get it on an app. Would you turn around and tell everybody how to get my show? Yeah, you know, what do you call it when you go into an app and?
App Store.
Yes, that. For example, we got a lady booked and she wrote a book on lying. So I said, well, you know, what's lying? She said, well, the absence of truth. I said, what's truth? You know, we all perceive things differently. We all are looking, first of all, our eyes, physically, our eyes are different. And the great painters who got older, what we're recognizing now is they must have had cataracts as they began to paint more muddy. That's what actually they were seeing. They thought they were seeing reality, but what was happening was their eyes were changing as they got older. So these very clear paintings of the early painters, great painters, began to be more feeling and more distributed, not as clear cut, but there was more feeling than there was reality, sight. So I said, well, how do we know what's true? Well, we got into a discussion about that. What's lying? And finally I heard myself say, well, does that apply to religion? And that's how the half hour ended. I was hit by lightning. I thought, no, I'm okay. But what I'm saying is how a conversation can start with an innocuous subject and lead, if you follow that conversation, lead somewhere in depth. People are always expressing on a surface what is deeply affecting them. So that's the talk show. Then, on the History Channel, there is this wonderful show called The Unexplained, and it's a big hit on the History Channel. People are turning to it because there are things that are unexplained. What's clairvoyance? What's clairvoyance? Do you know, I'm sure you do, that when the towers, a day or so before the towers went down, a number of people had either a dream or they wrote down what they could see in the future. And more than one person wrote down airplanes going into the towers. And there were some people who didn't want to go to work that morning because they had this feeling. And that's documented. What is that feeling? What does clairvoyance suggest? What is the energy of a photon of light? Okay, so now all of a sudden, through the great telescopes that we're putting up in space, we discover a galaxy 13.8 billion light years away. Photon of light. Now, a photon is described as a particle or a wave. And I keep asking science, well, what is it? Well, it's a particle. It's a wave. They don't know. But my question is this. What powers a particle of light? Where does this teeny little piece of particle come from that galaxy, 13.8 billion years, and it takes all that time to reach my retina? Where is it now, and how did the light come all this way? How did it come? I want to know! It's a mystery. Nobody knows. In fact, they've done some experiments in which a photon of light is like impulsed to a board that has two holes in it, and a electronic means of telling you where the photon of light went. And sometimes the photon of light goes to the left, and sometimes the photon of light goes to the right. It's an experiment that's been done many, many times. It's as though the photon of light makes up its mind where to go. What is clairvoyance? They discovered that that photon of light, just in front of that photon of light, is there something, some energy of some kind. I don't know whether they're not sure. I'm not sure what it is. But apparently it precedes the photon of light, and it may be making the choice for the photon of light, which means there's something in advance of an event happening. What the hell is that? It's magical. So that's the unexplained. Okay? Then, what else am I doing? Okay, this is so incredible. This is so. I'm going up in space. I'm telling you that. That's the third act. That's like the end of the second act. The space thing enters, reach the peak, and then there's a denouement on the third act. Come here. So I joined a company called Storyfile. Okay? Storyfile uses artificial intelligence, and in my case, they shot me with about 18 cameras, like in 3D. And in this thing that they've invented is the more you feed, you give information to this artificial intelligence computer, the more information the AI has to work with. So they're shooting your image, but in the commercialized case, you shoot your own image with your phone or whatever, and you speak into your phone with the image going. I spent 5 days answering 1,000 questions. And they showed me one of the answers, and I'd forgotten that I had done this. But they said, what about my grandson Clive, 2 years old? Talk to us about Clive. And I see myself saying, oh, Clive is beautiful, he's wonderful. But the real question is, what kind of a world are we going to have, Clive? What? All these storms and rising waters and changing and things dying and trees burning and other. What kind of a world are we going to have? And I went on for a minute or so, and the answer wasn't so much about a little 1.5-year-old child who's just mouth agape looking at the world around him, which we all should do. We should never for a moment let go of it. A microphone and the sound, and you're listening, and I can hear you listening. It's magical, man. Everything is magical. And what kind of a world? And we've got to focus on that. The end is coming. I'll be gone. You're here. Take care of it. And so that's called Storyfile. So you can film yourself and send it to Storyfile. And Storyfile puts it through their process and ends up, you can press a button and ask your image a question. And the image will answer based on how much you have, what kind of detail you've put into the artificial intelligence. I put 5 days into this AI thing. What is the prospect of that? Can you imagine having that on your grave? What did great-great-great-grandpa think? Well, let's go find out. Imagine if Aristotle or Alexander the Great or Einstein had done this. Imagine going up to his image and saying, Mr. Einstein, do you mind if I call you Doc, Mr. Einstein? What did you mean when you said E equals MC squared? What did you mean? What do you mean? And then, oh my dear, E is energy. I thought there was energy. And then this M is mass. And C squared, I never figured out what C squared was. Whatever the question was, imagine meeting these people decades, eons after they're dead. If only this technology had existed then, but it exists now. It's really so. I'm going up. I'm scared. Captain Kirk going where no man. I'm going what? Where am I going? No man. All right, so a guy by the name of Jason Ehrlich, a friend of mine, I believe he's a good friend of mine. I don't know about him. Jason Ehrlich, who produced Better Late Than Never.
Woo!
4 people saw it. Okay, good. So I went all over the world. A good swath of the world I went with Terry Bradshaw.
Woo!
George Foreman.
Woo!
My friend Henry Winkler. We get together. So we went all over the world, and Jason was instrumental in setting up moments which would catch us, the 4 of us, by surprise, and we'd ad-lib a scene, and it turned out to be amusing, and it was very popular during the time it was on. So he came to me about a year and a half ago, and he said, you know, he started to send his rockets up with people in space. Wouldn't it be something if Captain Kirk went up there? And I said, Jason, for God's sakes, man. Nobody cares about Captain Kirk going up in this place. You know, it was 55 years ago. My God, man. I'm doing, well, maybe I should go up in this place. So he continued to sell me on the idea, and bless his soul, Blue Origin took the idea, and I thought, because we were saying, well, do a documentary, and Bill will go up first, you know, and it'll come back down, and so Jeff Bezos said, no, it's a good idea. It's a really good idea. A lot of time went by, about like a year with COVID and all. All of a sudden he announces, Jeff Bezos is going up in the first rocket. Hey, maybe Jeff Bezos and I are going to go up. And then there's an announcement, Jeff Bezos and his brother are going to go up. And then there's an old lady who went up. And then there's a young lady who went up. So finally they came to me on the second thing, and they said, all right, how would you like to go up? You'll be the oldest guy in space. I don't want to be known as the oldest guy. I'm bloody Captain Kirk. So I agreed to go. So now, last week, I went to this place in Texas that just goes on forever. I mean, the Texas desert is like the, I don't know, Atacama? Is that the name of the desert in Peru? Or? Yep. No, it's just little bushes. There's little bushes all over it. And it rained actually while we were there. These little bushes turn green, but you know, and it's mind-numbingly endless. And finally you drive from Houston or something, and you drive 100 miles and another 100 miles, and then you get to a little town called Van Horn, and then you turn left. And you drive another 50 miles, and then a guard says, I'm sorry, you can't come in. You got your COVID, for God's sake. So I spent 2 days there last week, and the phrase that they use a lot of was, it's our best guess. Your best guess? And I love the news. I watch the news all the time, you know. So I'm really versed in what's happening politically, what's happening dramatically, what's happening with people and science. You know, I watched that terrible tragedy of the rocket going up and it exploded because the O-ring was frozen. There was a limit to what the rubber of the O-ring could stand, and the temperature that morning was right at that limit, like 32 degrees, if I remember correctly. And the O-ring didn't work, and the rocket exploded, killing the people on board. I also remember, what's the name of the telescope? The Hubble. So the Hubble telescope was sent up. I think it was $2 billion. The hopes of mankind. Now it's peering around. Now we're unveiling the Hubble, named after the great astronomer, Dick Hubble, whatever his name was. Hubble, the Hubble. Why we can't see it? What? The people in England used imperial, and the people in America used whatever we use here. They had two different measurements. Our best guess. So I'm looking at all these. Hey, we're human beings. We make mistakes. Although, how do you make a mistake if one country is doing imperial and the other is doing American measurements? And then, oh my God, we got the wrong measurements. We have to send 5 guys up there now to replace the focus. And I'm thinking, I'm going up in a rocket. And our best guess is it should be 5. So there's a little niggling fire of terror. I'm terrified. I'm Captain Kirk and I'm terrified. You know, I'm not really terrified. Yes, I am. It comes and goes like a summer cold. I'm fine. No, I'll just lie down there, get weightless for the 2-3 minutes, and apparently Jeff Bezos and his brother and this 81-year-old lady and the kid were throwing candy at each other while they were weightless. So what? You have 3 minutes to look into the access of space and the beauty of this oasis of Earth, and I was planning on pressing my nose against the window, you know, and my only hope was I wouldn't see somebody else. Czechoslovakian acrobat in a furry suit standing on the wing of a 747. You'd think that the little animal would have made it aerodynamic if the ears stood up, and it was hysterical. And then he's looking in the window, which, by the way, from that moment on, every time I took my kids on an airplane ride, they'd say, "Daddy, do it." So they would call the what do we call them? What do we call them now? Air hostesses. Air hostess. You know what I mean? So they'd say, my kids, 3 girls, Miss, come over here, and I'm like looking out the window. I look out the window, and she says, "Yes, sir," and I go. They wanted to go on airplanes all the time. So we're going into space. But you know, I find either it's early in the morning or it's just before I fall asleep. I make little speeches to myself, like, what am I going to say on that occasion? So I kind of try and get some words that are handy. And I've been doing that because the people who've been to space or the people who photographed space, and so there are terms for the little green, the little blue orb, you know. What can I say that is different? So I'll try and think of something to suggest how deeply I feel about the experience of looking into that limitless distance from whence comes a photon of light that's either a particle or a wave. And then I visualize myself looking like, wow, my God, that's unknowable. It's unknowable. 13.8 billion years ago, light years, whatever that is, 100. I mean, light travels 450,000 miles a second. I mean, our brains have been developed to get us out of a tree and find some nuts and fruit, you know, and get away from the man-eating dinosaur. That's what our brains are developed for. We were never programmed to look and say, my God, the mirror, you know, during the Middle Ages, they thought it was a blanket that had little holes in it, space. And they'd look up and say, oh, behind that is the light, because that's little holes in a velvet cloth. Or Queen Isabella, I think the earth is round, but everybody tells me it's flat. So I'd like some money, Queen Isabella, to go around the world and fall off the other end. I mean, that's what people were thinking. And it was bit by bit. Brave people. The earth is round. Those little pinpricks, those are stars burning like our sun and exploding with energy beyond earth, beyond count. There's a myriad of things. They see a signal, boom, boom, boom. No, we're being contacted by little green men. No, it's a dying, whatever it was. I knew it once. The
Supernova.
No, it's not a white dwarf and it's not a white star. It's the thing that goes around and sends out an impulse every second or two. What is it?
Quasar.
That's the one. Can't be it. Well, we all know what it is. There's a measurement there. They can measure space by the fact that in any case, I know so little that I don't even want to pretend I know what I'm talking about. But my point is that this blue, white, green, can you imagine? I was going to interview Stephen Hawking. I was going to talk to Stephen Hawking, can you imagine? And I may have been the last interview he did. So I'm waiting in Cambridge for the whole thing to be set up. It took about a day. And during that day, I went into the cathedral in Cambridge. It's beautiful, beautiful. Just, I heard they were cleaning the organ. There's a joke there, and I'm not going to use it. And I sat in a pew and listened to this thunderous thing, doing chords and things like that. There was no Bach involved. It was just sound. Wow, my God. And then I looked up into the, whatever you call that tower that has stained glass windows. And I saw for a second a little bit of dust, a particle of dust, a mote of dust hanging in the air in this huge cathedral. And I thought, that's what the earth must look like. It's a tiny piece of dust hanging in space. Whole galaxies can go through billions of stars, let alone billions upon billions of planets, but billions of stars can go through each other and never touch each other. They believe there are many instances of whole galaxies going through each other. You think, oh, it's going to explode, bang, crash. No, the spaces are so vast that they don't collide. These billions of stars meeting billions of stars. And here we have this little tiny thing. And we're sitting here this evening in this great city of New York, about to go out this evening wherever, to eat, to sleep, nourished by this little tiny speck of dust. And we're vomiting and puking on it, we're shitting on it. We gotta stop, folks. We really gotta stop. And that's it. Thank you so much, everybody. What a pleasure to be with you. Thank you. I really am scared.